We're just going to go ahead and get right past the disclaimers real quick and get straight to the story. Now, if you prefer to read the disclaimers, the two that I pop up, one concerning minors and the other one concerning fair use, you can pause this video and watch it or go to my other videos. 8-year-old little boy, a foundational Black American child, is lured to some pits, water pits, off the beaten path by two non-Black children. I'll leave it up to you to go and read the article. I'll link it for you, but I will not name any of the children's names as they are all minors and they are entitled to their protection. The article only tells you the name of the 8-year-old victim who was unalived. When this little boy was found unalived in those pits, it was initially suspected because he took his shoes off, or his shoes were found away from the body, that he willfully took his shoes off and explored the water on his own and drowned. Come to find out, the family hired lawyers and discovered the two young boys, who are not Black, lured this child to that spot, got him in the water, then held his head down until he drowned. The perpetrators, the oldest one is 11 and the second boy is 10. I don't remember the 10-year-old's charges, but I can tell you they're not going to prison. The 11-year-old was charged and got 2 years in a detention facility, and that's it. So by the time this kid is 13, he'll be out living a normal teenage life and can go on with his life after a premeditated crime. Because some people will read into this and say, well, I mean, do you really know better at that age? If you hold a person down and you physically drown them, before that you lured them to that spot, that is premeditated, okay? There's premeditation to that. There's no other way to get around that. The family seeking justice because the lawyers feel that it's racially motivated. My condolences to the family of the 8-year-old boy, because I'm going to say several things, okay? And these things aren't to be derogatory, to go directly after the parent. And it's not to blame this child for his unaliving. I just have a question for all of you in general. This story is just a small piggyback. Whatever happened to knowing where your children are at all times? And I don't say this, and I'm not trying to bring John Walsh into the argument per se, but there's a reason that you have to know where your children are at all times. The loss of his son Adam at the age of 6 is an example of that. Ideally, we send our children outside to play and say, go play, go explore, and we should do that. Because with this online stuff, everybody's making all of these online connections with weird people you really don't know. Or some you go to school with that are cyberbullying you. So I think it's an excellent thing that this child was outside of his house and exploring the natural world. But my question, and to not be offensive, did his mother and father know the two boys who did this? Did anybody, even kids that went to school with them, have a reasonable suspicion that these two boys had a jealousy? Because it makes no sense for two non-Black kids to, and let's not say this isn't racial, because it is, to lure that little boy off unless they reasonably didn't like him for some reason. Like they're old enough to have some sort of grasp and magnitude of what racism is. But why did they do it? And that why is very important for an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old to get 2 year sentences. I think the 10-year-old got 2 years of confinement. So by the time he's 12, this is a whisper in the wind. They're still preteens living their life. And this is at the time that the 8-year-old would also be entering his preteen had he not been unalived. The one thing I can say about some of my listeners is that you are all young but still old enough to remember when your parents had to know the parents, whether they were a single parent or two-parent home, of the children that your kids were going to play with. Now, I'm not saying whether I condone or condemn spanking, but I can remember you get you get quite a few licks on your behind just disappearing, and your parents didn't know where you went. And if they didn't believe in corporal punishment, you definitely got grounded between 2 weeks to a month. There was some disciplinary action. You were allowed to go out and play, but you still had to stay within a parameter. Okay. Something isn't right that two kids who've confessed to the crime, according to this article, because there's so many holes in this article, it's just giving you the basics. It's not saying a lot. What happens to the mind of an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old that they decide, oh, we're going to go and take this 8-year-old out and unalive them? And to boot, to find out that the mother of the 11-year-old got to see his sentence virtually because the mother of the 11-year-old was in jail for giving false statements in the same case on behalf of her 11-year-old son. Then you come to understand that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, does it? I need to start cutting that phone off because it does that every single time I record, and it annoys the crap out of me. At 11 years old and 10 years old, most of us were highly into the sport that we liked. We were doing nerdy stuff like playing puzzles. Some of us were still even probably playing with Legos and Barbie dolls at that age. The ideal of harming someone in that way in middle school for us, because come on, 10 and 11, that's late elementary, early middle school, was inconceivable. And yet this child was taken out in a secret place and almost immediately harmed by kids that he thought he could just play with, because he was likely a sweet kid that just wanted to make friends or thought these were his friends. My condolences to his family. This is a messed up story. But some tactics of old-fashioned parenting have to come back. I'm not sorry if I ever have kids. I mean, I'm very old, so I doubt I ever have kids. You don't get to hang with my child unless I know who your parents are so that I can do my proper research. Because see, that's what Google search engine is, and I don't care about people saying that's paranoid. I ain't know anybody coming around no child of mine, okay? Also, we're going to take the ideal of exploring the natural world and playing to a level to where you are in a certain parameter to where I can keep an eye on you. Let this be a lesson to you all that have kids this age right now. Hold them tight, and not just hold them tight. Understand that you have to be discerning about who you allow your legacy to be surrounded by. Because while you just see that as a child, someone you nurtured and a gift from God, There's so much more to it than that. There are just some sick people out here who probably have instilled in their children some sick things. And they don't give two craps about what the legacy that you've built.